If everyone calls you overrated, you may be underrated. And if everyone calls you underrated, you're going in the fraud tier because you're overrated. That's right, guys. Today we're going to be making another MMA tier list. We will be discussing the most underrated fighters in MMA, in the UFC. These are guys that do not get enough respect and appreciation for their skills. In the S tier, these are the top dogs. These are people that should be held in top 3 conversations for best strikers, top 3 best grapplers, but they're never brought up in those combos. And they are criminally underrated. The A tier, these are guys that are very underrated, just not the most criminally underrated. The B tier guys, these are people that are sometimes called overrated, but as I said, if everyone calls you overrated, you may be underrated. The slept on tier, this one is going to be a little bit different. These are guys that are respected for their skills. Everyone knows that they're good, but people are not grasping the severity of their skill set, how long of a run they can go on. These are guys that people should be screaming from the mountaintops about. That's how good they are. They're a little bit slept on, even though people respect them. The frauds, these are guys that I'm going to put on the list to help you understand what a real overrated fighter is. If everyone's calling them underrated, they're not. And the first guy in that tier is going to be Curtis Blaydes. For the longest time, for the past 3-4 years, people were talking about how Curtis Blaydes is the most underappreciated, underrated heavyweight because of how amazing his wrestling was. He was the guy that was supposed to come into the heavyweight division to destroy all the big, dumb punchers with his well-rounded skill set, his wrestling. He was the heavyweight wrestler. He's not even a top 3 best grappler in the division anymore, in my opinion. I really don't think he is. And if you can't get past Derek Lewis, if you can't get past the big dumb punchers that you're supposed to beat, you're overrated if everyone calls you underrated, bro. People were hyping this guy up for beating a welterweight, Chris Daukaus. Think about that. And you got KO'd by Derek Lewis. Cyril Gane's not getting knocked out by Derek Lewis. Pavlovich didn't get KO'd by Derek Lewis. All the real best heavyweights in the world are easily taking Derek Lewis out. And he just hasn't gotten past the big punchers. He's shit his pants every single time. The man hasn't got a title shot, and he's been a highly ranked heavyweight for the past 4 or 5 years. So I have to say he's a bit of a fraud. The first real underrated fighter, or I actually think I'm going to put him in the slept on tier, Brandon Moreno. We all know that Brandon Moreno is a phenomenal fighter. He's the goddamn champion in the flyweight division, for goodness sakes. But people do not appreciate him enough. People don't understand how good he is. I think he is the most well-rounded fighter in MMA right now. I think that because he's a flyweight, people don't give a fuck about him that much, and they never talk about him as being one of the most well-rounded fighters to ever live. But he really is. And the flyweight champions, the lightest weight class guys, who we always talk about as being the most skilled fighters, I mean, those are the best fighters. Why is this guy not talked about as being maybe the best fighter in MMA? It's because he's a flyweight. And I'm not going to act greater than now. I don't think the flyweight division is all that interesting. But you have to give Brandon Moreno his respect. His striking is phenomenal. He has finishing power. He has tremendous boxing, lightning fast kicks to the body. He was able to finish Kai Kara-France with a body kick. And as far as his wrestling is concerned and his grappling, it's top notch. It's A tier. This guy has beautiful scrambles. We've seen so many moments with him and Davidson Figueiredo. And Davidson is a monster on the ground too. Both of these guys have tremendous finishing ability on the ground. These men look perfect on the ground. Bulletproof down there. They have no holes in their game. And people don't give him enough respect. So I have to put Brandon Moreno in the slept on tier. He could just be the most well-rounded fighter in MMA. Now, this one is going to shock a lot of you. And I'm expecting plenty of disagreements here because I'm putting Petr Yan in the B tier. I think he is underrated. And a lot of you were probably expecting me to, once I mentioned his name, to put him in the fraud tier. Because people were talking about Yan as a guy that is one of the best fighters to ever grace the sport. He's going to be an unbeatable champion. The Weasel, who's a big MMA content creator, said he was the hardest to beat MMA fighter just a year ago. But the thing is, we know that he has a losing style. He's a very slow starter. He is not great in the early rounds. And he risks it so much. He leaves it up to the judges way too often. But the thing is, everyone now thinks he's a fraud. But he's only lost to the champion, who is also underrated, Aljamain Sterling. And he's lost to Merab Dvalishvili, who is slept on. Everyone knows Merab is good now, but Merab needs to be studied in a lab. There are 3 fighters that need to be scientifically studied for how freakishly suspicious they are as human beings. Number one, it's Merab. Number two, it is Chito Vera. I don't know what the guy is made of. He has the thickest skin in human history. The guy got hit with 20 elbows by Corey Sandhagen. None of them cut him open. He's never been dropped either. And number three is Yoel Romero. All right, Merab needs to be studied. So Petr Yan only lost to Merab, who is maybe an alien, and Aljamain Sterling, who's a champion. You know what I mean? That's not that bad. We know that he beat Sean O'Malley. I think we can all agree that Sean O'Malley, people call him a little bit overrated. I'm throwing him on this list. I think Sean O'Malley's underrated. I think his striking is underrated and his skills are underrated because people look at his antics, his hair, the fact that he's a stoner, he has a childlike personality, and they don't take him seriously. But his striking is top notch. He outstruck Petr Yan in the third round, the round in which most people said he was going to be a dead man in. We all thought if it was going to go to the third, Sean O'Malley would be quitting. That was his strongest round. Petr Yan beat that man. We all know it. 80% of us would agree. So what are his two L's? To the alien Merab, some people call him the Goblin, and then Aljamain Sterling, who's a goddamn champion, who has dominated Corey Sandhagen, who schooled Pedro Munoz. Look at what Sean O'Malley did to Pedro Munoz. Aljamain got in his face and fucked him up for 3 rounds. Petr Yan has only lost to the best of the best, and he will do just fine against every other bantamweight. And in a 5-rounder, I think he beats Sean O'Malley and finishes him. So I still think Petr Yan is a little bit underrated because at this point, people call him a fraud, but he's not. All right? I don't think he's going to have a good chance of becoming a champion if Merab sticks around, but you know what I mean? I think he's good still. Now, Merab Dvalishvili, let's talk about him. He is the most suspicious fighter in MMA history with his cardio. He has the best cardio in UFC history, and people understand how good he is ever since the Yan fight, but they don't understand how scary he is. I think he could beat John Jones. I think he could beat everyone in MMA hit. Okay, maybe not that far, but as far as this guy's cardio is concerned, it doesn't matter how skilled you are. I'm picking against you if you're fighting Merab Dvalishvili. There are guys like Colby Covington that are cardio monsters, cardio freaks. We all know about that. But the thing about Colby is he's a little bit labored. He's a slow twitch muscle kind of guy. He plods forward and he's, relentless. He never stops, but he's not high twitch in your face. Merab is high twitch in your face. Explosive for 25 minutes. Always exploding on you. Whether it's striking, whether it's shooting takedowns, whether it's twitching around the octagon. He is a high twitch, sprinting kind of style for 25 minutes. It is fucked. It's actually a little bit scary and horrifying. So I'm putting him in the slept-on tier because I think he's easily going to be a lock to become a future champion. It's not even a question in my mind. I think he beats every bantamweight, and he would give Volk a tough fight. I'm just going to say it like that. You have to finish him. I'm also putting Leon Edwards in the slept-on tier, okay? I think Leon Edwards, we all respect his skills ever since he beat Kamaru Usman, the second best welterweight of all time, twice. And he proved that the first time wasn't a fluke because he went out and schooled him in the second fight, and that's got to give him a shitload of confidence. I think that confidence is going to give this man some serious motivation to train hard, and I think he's going to start finishing people, and I think he's going to get at least 4 or 5 title defenses, and people think that he's just going to get destroyed by Shavkat. I know the conversations. I hear what's going on. I hear through the grapevine. People think Shavkat's, just has his belt being warmed up by Leon Edwards. That's not the case. Leon Edwards is going to be a nightmare matchup for everyone in that division. I think he's the second most skilled welterweight of all time. I think he's more complete than Kamaru Usman. I think he would have beat Kamaru Usman even if Usman was in his prime, and he basically did beat prime Usman. This was Usman 1 fight removed from Colby Covington, 2 fights removed from his best performance ever against Jorge Masvidal the second time, a year after his Gilbert Burns fight. And he schooled him the second time. And I think the altitude was the reason why Usman was winning the rematch. I think that Leon Edwards is going to go on a tear. And people know that he's good, but he is going to beat everyone in that division as far as I'm concerned, at least the guys that are up there now. Maybe Jack Della Maddalena will start knocking everyone out, and then we'll have a real conversation. But I think he beats Shavkat. Now, it's a close fight, but he's not going to be a walkover for Shavkat. He is a little bit slept on. The first S-tier guy, Jalen Turner. He is not the most underrated fighter in MMA, but he is extremely underrated. I think he's the best striker, the most dangerous striker in the lightweight division. I know he just took a L to Gamrot, a fight in which he arguably won. He dropped Gamrot on 2 different occasions in 2 different rounds. He hurts everyone. He's 6'3", 77-inch reach. He has the physical advantages. He has a pace and he has crazy cardio. That's one thing that people don't talk about. He did not slow down against Gamrot at all. Now, Gamrot outgrappled him in the third round, but Turner looked fresh. And I think that if that fight were to go the full distance, 5 rounds, I think Turner would finish him. And I actually would pick Turner in a heartbeat to beat Gamrot again. And the thing about Mateusz Gamrot, guys, I'm putting him in the fraud tier. And I'll get to that after. He's a fraud in my opinion. He's arguably lost his last 3 fights. Jalen Turner, I think he beats Dustin Poirier. I think he beats Rafael Fiziev. He has good cardio. He hurts everyone on the feet, as I mentioned. He throws in combinations. He can rip to the body. We don't really see all that much. And he has finishing ability on the ground. And I think if you put him against wrestlers, again, he has good pace. If he gets on the feet, he's going to hurt these guys. I think he hurts everyone that strikes with him. And I think if Dustin Poirier is getting fucked up against Dan Hooker, I think Turner fucks Dustin up. Jan Blachowicz, this is the most underrated fighter in MMA. All right, I may as well get to it. He is in the S tier, the most underrated guy. People never talk about Jan Blachowicz in conversations for being a top 3 striker. Now, the guys on my channel, the people that watch this channel, they know at this point. I've been talking about it for a while. Jan Blachowicz is a top 3 guy. He's up there with Volkanovski. He is much better than Adesanya. Now, you're probably saying, this guy's an Izzy hater here and this and that. Bro, watch the Adesanya fight. Watch the first round. Watch the second round. He schooled him. The man was untouchable against Adesanya. Izzy couldn't hit him in his face. Not once. This guy took Alexander Rakic, the man with the hardest leg kicks in MMA, and completely neutralized that leg kick. Checked him all, kicked him back, and fucked his leg up to the point to where he couldn't even continue the fight. And everyone talks about that being a fluke. No, he just fucks everyone's legs up because this man is an absolute demon with the way he defends people's leg kicks. The best leg checker in the game. And the best leg kicker in the game if you watch the Magomed Ankalaev fight. Everyone was talking about Magomed as being a future champ, this and that. He ran into Jan. Magomed's a great striker. He's lightning fast on the feet. He has good leg kick defense too. Jan fucked him up. Jan Blachowicz is the best striker in the upper weight class. He is the most defensively savvy guy in the game, in my opinion. He's the hardest man to land clean on, the hardest man to kick in MMA. But nobody ever includes him in a top 3 conversation for best striker. Ever. And he is a top 3 striker in MMA. Name a guy, he's better than him. Unless it's Volkanovski. You know what I mean? Basically. So I have to put Jan Blachowicz up there. You know, maybe not back in the day. He's been knocked out by prime Thiago Santos, even though he was winning the fight. You know, he was outstruck a little bit by Alexander Gustafsson. I don't know why I butchered that name so much. But that was early Jan Blachowicz when he was green in the game. And we've seen what this guy was able to do on his come up before he got the belt. So I have to put Jan up there. Dude, he schooled Adesanya, and I will give Adesanya his respect. Adesanya is a top 6 guy, a top 7 striker in the game. Jan schooled him. And Jan will not be outstruck by anyone in that weight class. I don't even care if it's Pereira. I think Jan Blachowicz could give him a run for his money. You have to take this man down to beat him. All right, next up, we're going to go with Sean Strickland. I'm putting Strickland in the B tier. People look at Sean Strickland's skill set. They say he's, because he talks a lot of shit and he looks like a sloppy guy. I mean, just his appearance in general is a little bit sloppy. He doesn't have a pretty style, but it's effective and it works, and he spars all the time, and that's why he's so goddamn good at fighting, because he's experienced. I think this guy fights more than anyone. He's probably fighting in the gym every day, and because of that, he knows what it looks like to get hit. He knows what it looks like to have a punch coming his way, and that's why he's hard to hit in the octagon. You throw Sean Strickland in there with anyone that's not named Israel Adesanya and Robert Whittaker, he is beating them in the middleweight division. He has rock-solid takedown defense. And yes, he offered his chin on a silver platter to Alex Pereira, but that's a one-off, bro. And that was I can't even say the word. That was a terrible game plan. All right? But Sean Strickland beats Marvin Vettori. He beats everyone else. He schooled Imavov. You know what I mean? He schooled Jack Hermanson. He schooled Uriah Hall. He landed significant strike records for the middleweight division in those fights too. And people still don't give this guy credit. He is going to beat Abu Smagomedov and school him too. And you're going to understand Sean Strickland is the real deal for a middleweight. He is a good middleweight. Went toe-to-toe with Jared Cannonier only 5 months after he got slept by Alex Pereira. Took the biggest shots Cannonier had and made Cannonier swing and miss. That's what Sean Strickland does. He makes everyone swing and miss. He's hard to pin down. He's hard to hit. And he has really good cardio and volume, good takedown defense. I think he's a top 4 middleweight right now, without a doubt. Yair Rodriguez in the A tier. I think that, you know what? Screw it. I'm putting him in the S tier. I think Yair Rodriguez is a top 3 most underrated fighter in MMA. I really do. Now, I am a massive Volkanovski fan, but when I rewatched Yair Rodriguez and Max Holloway, and I saw Yair Rodriguez landing flush head kicks at will against Max Holloway, he had one sequence where he landed like 4 kicks in the span of 2 seconds, as it seemed. 3 of them leg kicks, 1 of them a head kick. When he landed that head kick, he was this far away from Max. This guy is a nightmare for everyone. Again, similar to Jan, no one talks about him as being a top 3 striker in MMA. He might be. I don't understand why. If you watch this man side by side on a screen versus anyone else, you're going to say this guy's the most impressive striker I've ever seen. It's not only his flashy stuff. His orthodox strikes, whether they're leg kicks or just body kicks, that's when he does his best work. And the way he can follow his kicks up immediately with a solid 1-2 down the pipe, unbelievable, man. This guy might just knock Volkanovski out. And I'm Volkanovski's biggest fan. He terrifies me. If Volkanovski gets hit by those head kicks, he's going to sleep. Max Holloway could take them because Holloway's chin is made of something different. I think that Yair, I don't understand why people don't talk about him. It might be his inactivity. You know, people give him respect, but it's like, you don't understand how good he is, bro. Why is he not being talked about as being one of the most impressive strikers to ever grace the sport? I don't get it. I have to put him in the S tier. He's one of the most underrated fighters in general. And now that he's dangerous off of his back, good luck to everyone that isn't Volkanovski. He outstruck Max Holloway. Remember that. Max Holloway won with his grappling. Credit to Max. It's MMA. That's what he did. He was the better fighter overall. But he got outstruck. Justin Gaethje. I'm putting him in the A tier. Justin Gaethje is very underrated. I picked Rafael Fiziev to beat him, so that's me underrating Justin Gaethje. But I said, after rewatching Justin Gaethje's fight in preparation for the Fiziev bout, when I made my prediction, I said, Justin Gaethje has really good head movement. He's a hard guy to hit, and yeah, he looks a little bit sloppy, but he's effective. He did a lot better than Poirier did when he fought Michael Chandler. Poirier got his ass kicked for 2 rounds against Michael Chandler. Justin Gaethje never really got his ass kicked in that fight. And he has good head movement. As I said, he's made a lot of adjustments with Trevor Whitman. He may have fought like a drunk man when he first got to the UFC, but not anymore. Beating Rafael Fiziev, who people were talking about as being the next big challenge for Islam, the most dangerous striker in the lightweight division, dude, he gassed Rafael Fiziev out, took his biggest shots, and basically fucked him up in the 3rd round and edged out the 2nd. And Fiziev was supposed to be the more technical, better striker. People thought Justin Gaethje was just going to get embarrassed in that fight. And that didn't happen. And I even underrated Justin Gaethje. I used to say he was Homer Simpson and all that. But I underrated him big time. I think he's an incredible striker. Similar to Sean Strickland, he's just a lightweight version of him who hits a lot harder. He's slept on big time. I think Justin Gaethje should get his credit. People call him overrated all the time. I think he proved that he wasn't. Cyril Gane, I am putting him in the fraud tier. All right, I picked him to beat John Jones. I was talking about this man as being the next heavyweight GOAT, the new breed of heavyweight that's going to absolutely destroy everyone. He looks like John Jones did when John Jones started his career. That's what he's doing to these heavyweights. He's making them look foolish. And then John Jones manhandled him and submitted him in the course of 2 minutes. Listen, I understand Gane is still good on the feet and he can give anyone issues on the feet. But, like, that was so pathetic, man. What the fuck is going on there? And because of how much I was hyping him up to be, I have to say he's a fraud to me. He still is good, but I don't think he's going to be a champion. I think that Pavlovich would beat him too. So that's what I'm going to say. Michael Chandler in the B tier. This guy is talked about as being chinny. He's talked about as having a low IQ. And yes, he does have a low IQ. I will say that. I call him low IQ Mike. But he dominated Poirier. Maybe not dominated, but he beat Poirier's ass for 2 rounds. I know he got dropped in the last 15 seconds of the first round, but other than those 15 seconds where he got hit with an elbow, he beat Poirier's ass. In the 2nd round, he took Poirier down and just dominated him on the ground with top control. He made a stupid mistake in the 3rd, as he always does, but people act like this guy goes out there and just gets chinned in every fight. He's only been knocked out once in the UFC. Yeah, he's been dropped here and there, but that's what happens in the lightweight division. A lot of people get dropped. He had a good fight with Justin Gaethje, competitive, knocked out Tony Ferguson despite getting dropped. That's what you should do to Tony Ferguson. You should knock him out. And as far as Conor McGregor is concerned, the fact that people are actually picking Conor is underrating Michael Chandler. The guy is a freak with his athleticism, with his explosive ability, with his striking. He has good leg kicks, solid leg kicks. I think he's going to destroy Conor's legs and knock him out within 2 rounds. It's going to be an easy fight for him. And he has the skills to be a champion. It's just the IQ that holds him back, but his skills are there. And I have to say he's a little bit underrated because people act like Poirier fucked this man up when he lost 2 rounds against him. Everyone talks about Poirier like he's a beast. He's one of the best lightweights to ever do it. And he is, but give Chandler some respect for beating Poirier's ass for 2 rounds, goddammit. Jailton Almeida, I have to say he slept on. I don't think that he's going to be a champion when guys like Tom Aspinall are around or Sergey Pavlovich, but he could definitely be a champion at light heavyweight, and he's going to dominate everyone that there is other than, again, the top 5 guys. So he could go on there to be a top 2, a top 3 guy, gatekeeper, and people don't talk about him enough. He is a beast. He has dominated everyone. He's similarly done what Khamzat has done, is beat people up and dominate them on the ground without taking a single strike, which is really impressive. All right, I'm putting Jailton Almeida in the slept-on tier. This guy has dominated everyone that he's fought on the ground. He's had similar performances to Khamzat Chimaev, maybe not as fast-paced, but he never gets hit. He doesn't get hit at all in his fights. And we haven't seen him strike, which is the big question, which is why I don't think he would be able to beat a guy as big as Tom Aspinall with good grappling too. We have to see what his striking looks like, but I think he's going to dominate Jairzinho Rozenstruik in a few weeks, and I think this guy's going to be a staple in the top 5 at heavyweight, and I think he would be a lock for a champion at light heavyweight based on how big he is. He's a sauced Yoel Romero, and Yoel Romero might be sauced. He looks like a Yoel Romero on steroids, all right? This guy is going to take most of the stuck-in-the-mud heavyweights, the fat heavyweights, and do what Curtis Blades should have done to them. You know what I mean? He is the real Curtis Blades these days in that division. He's the real grappler at heavyweight right now, in my opinion. So I'm going to put him up there too. Volkov. I'm putting Volkov in the B tier, or I'm going to put him in the slept-on tier. People don't give him respect. People know Volkov is pretty good. Actually, no. People actually don't give him any respect. He fucks up every heavyweight that's not in the top 5. The heavyweight division's like the Mariana Trench. You have the top 5, Jones, Aspinall, Pavlovich, Curtis Blades, Gane, and everyone else. Maybe you're going to throw Sergey Spivak in there too, who I'll put in the B tier. But other than that, there's no one else. If it's not a top 5 guy, Volkov is fucking him up. People were picking Romanov to beat him. Jairzinho Rozenstruik got destroyed by him in 1 round. He knocked out Romanov, as I just mentioned. And if he fucks everyone up, man. I know he lost to Derek Lewis, but he dominated Derek Lewis. He gave Cyril Gane a really tough fight. That was one of Gane's hardest fights. And that was actually one of the reasons that made me believe, Gane might lose to Jones because he got in a good scrap with Volkov. But Volkov is good. He is good. And I'm picking him to beat every heavyweight fighter that isn't a top 5 guy, unless it's maybe a Sergey Spivak who's coming up or a Jailton Almeida. He dominates basically every other heavyweight that's not up there. He's a good gatekeeper. I'm putting Nathaniel Wood in the B tier as well. I think Nathaniel Wood is one of the most well-rounded featherweights. He's moved up a weight class. He might be a little undersized once he gets to the top of the division, but this guy's performance against Charles Jourdain was ridiculous at the Abu Dhabi card, or it may have been the France card, but either way, I love this guy's style. He has great grappling, good takedown defense, and he kind of schooled Charles Jourdain. Now, it was a good fight, but the epitome of well-rounded. So I'm putting him on this list. Next up, Song Yadong. I'm putting Song Yadong in the slept-on tier. Now, we know he had a good fight with Corey Sandhagen. He impressed us with that. We know he's 25. This guy is not only tough as nails, he seems unfinishable. He has a granite chin. He's taken flush head kicks from Julio Arce. He's taken flush head kicks from, what's his name? Corey Sandhagen, who's one of the best strikers in MMA. He can't be finished, and he's lightning fast. He has big power, amazing takedown defense. He is exactly what a bantamweight future champion looks like. And people, again, are just underrating him a little bit because they're picking Ricky Simón to beat him this weekend. And I actually think that Ricky Simón's a dark horse too, because I'm putting Ricky Simón in the B tier. People don't talk about him enough. He's also slept on. But Song Yadong is the better dark horse. And I think he will knock Ricky Simón out, and therefore I think he's a little bit better. But both of these guys are underrated. They're not talked about enough. Mateusz Gamrot's going in the fraud tier. Now, I mentioned Jalen Turner arguably beat him. Mateusz Gamrot, his best win is over Jeremy Stephens, for goodness sakes. The Carlos Diego Ferreira fight was, it was all right. It was okay. Carlos Diego Ferreira is pretty good, but Jeremy Stevens was his most dominant win, and that had us thinking that he's just going to go out there and fuck everyone up. No, because he's lost his last 3. He robbed Arman Tsarukyan, who beat him 4 rounds to 1. We all know it. He got dropped with a spinning back fist in like round 4, and the judges gave him that round. Insane. If he fights Jalen Turner again, as I said, I'm picking Turner in a heartbeat. Could have lost that fight and got schooled in the 2nd and 3rd round by Beneil Dariush. He isn't all that, all right? And hardcore fans, they bust a load thinking about this guy. I don't know what it is. I guess it's just because he's a high-paced grappler in the lightweight division. He kind of reminds us of a Colby Covington, but like, yeah, I think he's a poor man's Colby. I do not think he's that amazing. He's good. He's a good fighter. I will say that. He's a good fighter, but he's not a future title contender, as a lot of the hardcore fans think. So I have to say he's a little bit of a fraud. Belal Muhammad, I'm putting him in the A tier. People think Belal Muhammad's going to be a walkover for the rest of the guys that he's going to fight. Oh, Shavkat's going to destroy him. Leon's going to destroy him. No. I think those guys beat him, but Belal Muhammad will be a tough fight for everyone. And because he's a meme, people think he's just going to get flat out knocked out by everyone or dominated by everyone. If he fights Colby, he's going to give Colby a war, similarly to how Colby and Usman matched up. He's that similar stylistic matchup to all the wrestlers. He's like the Colby to Kamaru Usman, bro. Or the fucking, yeah, you know what I mean. He's a bad stylistic matchup for a lot of these guys. He's going to bring them more. He has a high pace. He has pretty goddamn good striking. As far as I'm concerned, it's underrated. He's hard to pin down in the octagon. He's constantly moving around laterally, kicking at range. He can do that. Lightning fast kicks to the body. Was able to go out there and put on a clinic against Vicente Luque. No, it wasn't the most entertaining fight, but nonetheless, he kind of schooled him and knocked out Sean Brady. You know, Sean Brady was talked about as being one of the next up-and-coming guys, but he knocked him out. That's what you should do to prove that Sean Brady is a fraud. And Sean Brady is a fraud. Congratulations to Belal Muhammad. That's what you should do to solidify yourself as, I'm actually a real top welterweight. He's going to give Burns a tough fight. Now, I think Burns beats him, but as I said, he gives everyone a tough fight. And outside of the top 4, outside of the top 5, I think he beats everyone. So people don't give Belal enough respect. I'm also going to put Roman Dolidze in the fraud tier because people were looking at his record and saying, wow, this guy, you know, is ridiculously good. He finishes everyone on the ground. He could go on to be a middleweight contender, and he got beat by Marvin Mediocre Vittori, so that came to a halt. You can't just look at the records, guys. So I have Roman Dolidze in there. Darren Till's the left hand. Roman Dolidze is the right hand. He spams the right hand when he's on the feet. He's very one-dimensional. Nikita Krylov, I'm putting him in the B tier too. I think he's going to fight for a belt one day. We saw what he did to Ryan Spann. He's improved his grappling a lot. Good offensive grappling, submitted Ryan Spann. Very dangerous on the feet, powerful on the feet, fast. So I think he's underrated. People don't give him enough respect. And Montel Jackson. I'm going to put Montel Jackson in the slept-on tier. This guy will be a top 5 bantamweight or a top 8 bantamweight in no time. It's just that he doesn't have a personality. He hasn't fought any big names, but he will get there. He has power in his hands. He's lightning fast. He has good takedown defense. He's very athletic. He's big for the division. He will be a top contender within a year or 6 months, without a doubt. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this tier list video. The most underrated fighters in MMA. Jan Blachowicz is the most underrated guy. He should be talked about as being a top 3 striker in every conversation in MMA, but he's not for whatever reason. Jalen Turner is the most dangerous striker in the lightweight division, and Yair Rodriguez is an absolute alien. I am blown away when I watch Yair Rodriguez fight, and I don't understand why people aren't, like, again, talking about how this is like a next level of striking. Insane. I guess it's because Max Holloway beat him, but he outstruck Max. He's the real deal. And the frauds, you see them there. Petr Yan's on this list is underrated because everyone's calling him a fraud these days. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video.